What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to 21 Hunting and Fishing. Welcome back to the channel. Taking a break from story time to talk business. Uh, I I've been thinking about all the different kind of places I've hunted and fished, and all the different kind of controversies there are. Things that humans do that they have the best intentions, but they don't turn out how they intended. And I've heard a lot about the wolf reintroduction in Colorado and how that's causing a lot of controversy. And then I thought about the lake trout in Maine. It's particularly at Sebago Lake in Maine. Now, lake trout are considered an invasive species in Sebago Lake because they compete for food with the landlocked salmon. And so I thought I would do a podcast about lake trout in Maine and wolves in Colorado and what do they have in common. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about lake trout, also known as togue, and then we're going to talk about the wolves in Colorado and the reintroduction that they're doing and the controversy there. So first, let's talk a little bit about the lake trout in Maine. So the lake trout were introduced to, in this case, I'm just going to talk about Sebago Lake, but there's other places, and it's considered a invasive species. So somebody during ice fishing caught and left all these lake trout to die. Now, this is a bad look for anglers. I don't recommend this. Uh, People might have the best intentions to do this, but take them home and clean them. You can eat lake trout. Now, does it taste as good as a landlocked salmon? No. What does a landlocked salmon taste like? It tastes exactly like salmon. They're delicious. But that's a whole bunch of food just sitting on the ice. So this story it's from the Bangor Daily News, I think it was. Yeah, BDN, Bangor Daily News. And it was in March of 2021. So last week, I took an angler or a small group of anglers to task for leaving dozens of dead lake trout on the ice of Sebago Lake after an ice fishing derby. Then he heard from readers. Let me get my pointer going. Go to the next slide. So the reaction to that column was quick and opinions varied vastly. Some thought that I was a jerk because I called out what I saw as behavior that would make all anglers look bad by association. Others praised the stance I took, and still others wanted to argue about my assertion that many Mainers consider yellow perch trash fish. They do, trust me. So this is funny. Listen, recreational anglers, we can't agree on anything. And this is one of the reasons why I believe that states go after recreational fishing, in some cases recreational hunting, because we can't agree on anything. We can't agree on what color lure to use. We can't agree where to go fishing and when. And when they can cause that division within a community, it's easier to make rules that would not be in their best interest. Commercial fishermen, on the other hand, have a much better community as far as like they know what they speak with one voice. There was more money involved, and I'm not saying that people don't go after commercial anglers, the commercial fishermen, they do, but I'm just trying to make a point that I think as recreational fishermen, fisher ladies, we need to be better at not fighting with each other. So the author of this article continues, today I'll share some of your thoughts, the good, the bad, and the ugly, on what I wrote, and I'll add in a few editorial comments of my own. From Tom via email, you should pursue a career with the Maine's Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. You seem to know more about fishing regulations than objective reporting. What's your opinion on the 1 gallon smelt limit in Maine? Come on, Tom. Even I know the smelt limit is 2 quarts. And the last time I went smelting, we only caught one. Not 1 quart, not 1 gallon, one smelt. So the togue compete with the landlocked salmon for smelt. So that is why the togue are drowning out the salmon in places like Sebago Lake. Very popular lake to fish in Maine. It's, it's close to Portland, so like a high density population area. It's not far for people to say drive from like Massachusetts and fish there, and so it's just a popular place to fish and vacation all year round. And then from Sean wrote via email, I really enjoyed your article and appreciate the focus on the foolish and wasteful actions. Whatever happened to the idea if you kill it, you eat it? Yeah, same thing. You should never really do this. It doesn't matter what type of fish it is. People just will see that there's a whole bunch of dead fish on the ice. It could be the worst, most invasive species known to man, but people are going to try to twist it to fit their agenda. From Matt via email, you are not an ambassador for Maine Sportsman, in my opinion, regarding your latest ice fishing article. You do fit in with the BDN, and I guess I give you credit for always playing it safe for job security. Congrats on the clicks, I suppose. No need to reply. With that said, I hope you're doing well. People are mean on the internet. They say things that they wouldn't say to your face. Let's start at the end and work our way forward. Thanks, Matt. I'm doing quite well. The enthusiastic response to the column indicates that many people read it. That's a good thing. Also, after 29 years here at BDN, I'm happy to hear that I'm finally fitting in. That's always been a concern of mine. As to ambassador, well, I'll settle for co-participant. From Bob via email. I'm a Pennsylvania resident and fisherman, and I read with interest and frankly a bit astonished about the lake trout kill. But what interested me most was the fact that yellow perch are considered a trash fish in your neck of the woods. Perch are a sought after fish in many parts of the Northeast, as they are flavorful white meat, as good as you can put on the table, in my opinion. I was not surprised, however, to see that Maine has the same issue with slob sportsmen as every other state in the Union. See? Bob from Pennsylvania has no idea who made this mess, but he made his opinion because, well, why wouldn't he? You just leave all these fish here. Like, what do you think people are going to think? And so the author of this article, responds to Bob, says, I try to avoid the old trash fish versus game fish arguments, but trust me, I've heard many people call yellow perch the T word in these parts. I've also heard in these emails that yellow perch tastes a lot like shrimp, so maybe I'm missing out on something special. Yeah, I've never had a yellow perch. I've caught them. I guess I am guilty as referring to them as trash fish, but knowing what I know now, I would probably try to eat one. So, okay, here's what I'm trying to get at mostly when I'm talking about these lake trout. Some valid points, Bob, but two things ought to be mentioned. Lake trout were introduced to Sebago nearly 50 years ago and were stocked annually from 1972 until 1982. In all, more than 300,000 lake trout were stocked into the lake over that span. Focusing on what was done half a century ago won't pay dividends today, in my opinion, because that stocking can't be undone. Also, there is no feasible way to eradicate just the lake trout in such a massive lake. Tossing the fish on the ice by the dozens or by the hundreds will reduce the population, but there's no way to set back the clock. Lake trout are here to stay. So that's kind of the point, and here's where we tie into the reintroduction of wolves in Colorado. I'm sure the state had great intentions to introduce these lake trout, and I've caught lake trout before. They're fun to catch. They can grow quite big. I think the state record, you can fact check me, but for some reason I think the state record is like over 40 pounds, and the catching of fish that big in a lake is pretty cool. So I've eaten lake trout before. Tastes like trout. But it's not salmon, right? I mean, salmon is basically the best tasting fish that you can catch and eat in a freshwater lake, I think, in Maine. Maybe cussed nuggets is a different story, but I've honestly never had cussed nuggets. That's a different podcast. So the point is that, someone back in the 70s made this decision to stock the lake trout as a way to entice sport angling, and they had the good intentions to do it, but they didn't have a crystal ball to look 50 years into the future to see that the population now has gotten completely out of control and they're eating all the smelt, and they're voracious eaters. They're drowning out the salmon. So it caused a lot of controversy, as you can see. Now, I think the issue with the wolves in Colorado is it's same but different. It's same in that here's a state that's releasing wolves. They have great intentions. The wolf is, I guess, on the federal endangered species list, so they're trying to reintroduce them to their historic ranges, but that was a long time ago. A lot has changed since the wolves roamed these areas. And so this is an article from CPR.org. Political tensions have started to boil over amid the lack of official details. The State Wildlife Commission denied a petition from agriculture organizations last week seeking to pause the reintroduction program. Meanwhile, another livestock group submitted a draft ballot measure to repeal the program, and state and federal elected officials have flexed their political muscles and threatened to take action to protect rural communities. So, a lot like what I witnessed yesterday at the California Department of Fish and Wildlife discussion about essentially what they want to do is they want to take the coyotes, what's the one? They want to put it on a list that makes it a game animal. And I guess when they do that, they can limit the take, and there's a different set of rules. Like right now, uh, essentially it's more favorable, I think, for the farmers because they can get rid of these pests as they need. So then you look at a place like Colorado, they're reintroducing these wolves, and now the farmers are worried, rightfully so, that they're gonna kill their livestock. And so again, good intentions, just bad execution. Things have changed since the wolves roamed freely in the herd range that they used to. They're already Colorado proposes a plan to guide when it might kill wolves for preying on livestock. So in one side of the room at in Colorado, building somewhere, they're talking about how we're gonna reintroduce these wolves and breed them, whatever. And then the other side of the room is like, okay, but after we reintroduce them, we need to have a plan to kill them because we know they're going to go after the livestock. I don't think that makes much sense. I don't know why these governments are making it so difficult for people like farmers to do their jobs. Let's get into the article. The basics of the proposal. The definition marks a shift from the state's current wolf management plan, which gives wildlife officials leeway to decide whether the wolf behavior amounted to chronic depredation on a case-by-case basis. A clear definition has been a top demand from Colorado ranching groups who claim the state hasn't done enough to protect livestock from predators. For a wolf's behavior to meet the proposed definition, it must kill or injure livestock at least 3 times during a 30-day period. So I don't know who's standing around with the clipboard and making sure who's keeping score on these wolves. I mean, it's not it just doesn't really seem practical. The state must also find clear and convincing evidence a wolf caused at least one of the attacks, meaning there's no reason to believe another species of mishap caused the event. So then you find your dead cow, then you have to now go on an investigation to figure out what animal killed your cow, where you should be doing your job as a rancher and not as an investigator. The other two instances can meet a lower predominance of evidence standard, which requires proof showing it's likely a wolf or wolves caused physical trauma resulting in injury or death. If a wolf meets the definition of chronic depredation, Colorado Parks and Wildlife would consider a separate set of factors to decide if lethal removal is the best way forward. So on day one they release the wolves, and then on day whatever they're killing the wolf because they know it's going to go after livestock. This doesn't make sense. Those considerations include whether a rancher has already tried to repel wolves using non-lethal techniques and whether there's anything else luring the predators to the livestock. Can the ranchers just ranch? I'm not even a rancher, and I feel bad for them. A permit issued by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service allowed Colorado wildlife officers to legally kill or harass wolves, which is otherwise strictly prohibited under the U.S. Endangered Species Act. So the legals out there can let me know, but there's different rules because it's like a federally endangered species, and so the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services basically has jurisdiction. So then they're allowing the state wildlife officers to kill or harass the wolf. I think harass, they just mean like shoo it away, which you can't do. So like they know they're creating a problem, but they want to do it anyway. Listen, I think the wolf is an amazing creature. I just think times have changed and we need to rethink about how we go about these types of things. Wolf advocates and ranchers disagree on the definition. Tim Richard, the president of the Middle Park Stock Growers Association, was glad to see the state proposed a definition, but he said it doesn't offer enough clarity for livestock producers. The document, for example, defines depredation event as a 24-hour period with a predominance of evidence showing wolves attack livestock working dogs. Yeah, so what does predominance of evidence mean exactly in this case? Yeah, they also have to worry about their working dogs, like their dogs that are gonna herd. Sorry, guys. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think we need to look at different examples. And when they introduced the lake trout in Maine, they didn't even think of any problems. Like they're already seeing problems with introducing the wolves in Colorado. And people are paid to create the problem. People are paid to get rid of the problem. Maybe this is a job security thing. I'm not too sure. Again, I think wolves are amazing creatures. I just think that it doesn't make sense to create a problem. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Controversial topics, I know, but I think we need to talk about these things because if we don't, you have these people that I think just don't know, and they make the decisions, and I'm sure they're smart people, but they're already creating a problem. So that's what lake trout in Maine and wolves in Colorado, and I guess coyotes in California now. But they're not trying to introduce coyotes to California. They're already here. They're everywhere. They're behind my house. I've seen coyotes run through my neighborhood. I see them all the time. They're everywhere. Again, different podcast. Remember, kill something, drag it back to the cave, and eat it. See ya.